The Leaning Tower of Pisa is leaning a bit less these days thanks to a 17-year-old intervention.
Welcome to Plain English, the podcast that goes at the right speed for English language learners. Listen now and read the transcript online at plainenglish.com. Now, here's Jeff, your host for today's episode.
The most famous symbol of the city of Pisa, Italy, is its leaning tower. But after it started leaning a bit too much, scientists intervened between 1993 and 2001. And the news now is that the tower is starting to straighten out a little. Hey friends, I'm Jeff. JR is the producer, and you are listening to the best podcast for learning English through current events. You might be interested in reading a transcript of this program. If so, just go to plainenglish.com/108 and you'll see not only a transcript, but an interactive transcript with translations of about 100 words and phrases from English to Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, Japanese, and French. Pretty good deal and all free. By the way, I never really talk about this, but the website is a great way to explore old episodes. There are a lot of new listeners, and you might find yourself with a little extra time to listen to older episodes. Well, the website has all our episodes categorized by topic and geography. So if you're interested in stories about Europe, for example, you can find all the episodes we've ever done about Europe. Or Brazil has its very own category. If you're interested in science, the arts, business, politics, just browse those categories. All on the homepage at plainenglish.com. That, by the way, is all JR. He is the one who puts all the episodes into categories for you. Like this one, for example. I assume he'll put it in the UK and Europe category because it's based in Italy. But will he also call it science and technology, since it's kind of a technological story about how they stopped the Leaning Tower of Pisa from falling? Or will he say it's more like arts and culture since it's a historical landmark? I have no idea, and I really have no say in the matter either, to be honest. It's all his call, but every episode is arranged and categorized for you on the website so you can browse topics of interest. So check those out at plainenglish.com. And if you're on your phone, don't worry, it works great on mobile devices too. The Leaning Tower of Pisa is leaning a little less thanks to a scientific intervention about 18 years ago. A group of scientists is now ready to declare partial victory in their effort to straighten out one of the world's quirkiest landmarks. They recently confirmed that the tower is leaning 4 centimeters less than it was before, and that the building will be stable for another 200 years. Let's back up for those of you who might not know about the famous Leaning Tower of Pisa. The 7-story tower is the bell tower associated with the Pisa Cathedral. It took 199 years to build. Work began on August 14th, 1173. Let me say that again. August 14th, 1173, and it was finished in the year 1372. And it isn't even straight. The tower actually began to sink on the south side after they reached the second floor in the year 1178. Pisa is located on the Mediterranean Sea and has a soft subsoil. The 3-meter foundation that they laid was not enough to stabilize even a 2-story structure, much less the 7 stories that the tower would eventually become. Construction on the tower was halted for almost a century while the city of Pisa was engaged in distracting battles with other nearby city-states. This was way before Italy was a country. It's a good thing they paused, though, because the 96-year gap in construction allowed the ground around the base of the tower to settle so that the structure could be completed. Even so, after it was finished, the tower was leaning toward the south. Since it was just a bell tower, nobody had to live in it, and it worked just fine. But ever since its construction, it has leaned farther and farther to one side, essentially falling down in slow motion, 1 or 2 millimeters a year further off center. By 1993, the tower was leaning 6 degrees or 13 feet off the perpendicular. There have been several attempts to stabilize and correct the tower's lean over the years, but none was successful until a stabilization effort between 1993 and 2001. The stabilization project was complex, but is somewhat easy to picture in your mind. The tower is leaning because the soil underneath it is uneven. It's leaning toward the south. So scientists decided to remove soil from underneath the north side. They dug wells under the foundation and drained the wells of water. This created cavities or holes in the ground under the north side, allowing the weight of the tower to push down on that north side and eventually start to stabilize. This was combined with efforts to reinforce the foundation, harness the monument with large steel cables, and pull it a little bit toward the north so the building would push down on that north side. The effort took 10 years and 30 million euros to complete, and it looks like it worked. There is a committee of scientists that monitors the tower's lean, and they said that it has moved back another 4 centimeters, and the tower is no longer in immediate danger of falling over. That's a relief. They said that the tilt is back to where it was in about the 1800s. They think it will continue to straighten out a little bit, but that eventually it will resume its tilt toward the south. As a result, the scientists believe the tower will be safe for about another 200 years, after which another generation would have to restore it again. That would be good for Pisa's economy, since the tower attracts about 3 million visitors every year. The mayor of Pisa has said that he's delighted the tower will be saved, but also quite happy that it's not going to be straight. As one of the scientists working on that project said, the tower could probably be straightened out, but who wants that? The tower was born leaning, he said, and leaning it shall remain. So that explains why I was not able to go to the top. I went to Italy when I was about 12 years old, I think, and that would have been right about when they closed it for renovations in 1993. I went as part of a school trip, and I have some photos of my younger self standing in front of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. But I never went inside, and that's probably why. It was closed for that restoration. I'm glad the tower will still be standing and still leaning for generations to come. Time to say hi to a few listeners. Michael from Warsaw, Poland, is studying psychology and is involved in a startup business. Hello to Anton from Germany. Thanks for sending me a note this week. And I also want to say hi to Asan from Iran. Once a month, Asan drives 8 hours from Tehran, where he lives, to his hometown, and he listens to plain English along the way. I told Asan that I love going on longer road trips. Maybe not 8 hours once a month, but every now and then I love just getting in the car and going for a long trip. And I always listen to podcasts. So I'm really happy that Asan is listening to us in the car on his long road trips, as many of you probably do too. Thanks, Asan, for the note. Before we get to our phrasal verb, I wanted to remind you about our partnership with Mosalingua at plainenglish.com/learn. Mosalingua has some great online resources for studying and practicing English. If you want to improve your vocabulary, then check out Mosalingua Web. If you're studying for the TOEFL exam, they have a program for that. Maybe you're in business and you want to study business English. You're in luck since they have a business English program too. In fact, I'm using the business Spanish programs right now, since that's something I need to work on in my Spanish. The programs are fun, addictive, and they're really good for memorizing words, phrases, and expressions. And they're all practical. You'll be learning expressions you can use every day. So check out all they have to offer at plainenglish.com/learn, LEARN. Okay, today's word is a phrasal verb, and that English phrasal verb is straighten out. There are 2 ways to use straighten out, so let's start with the way you originally heard it. Scientists in the early 1990s decided they needed to straighten out the Leaning Tower of Pisa a little bit, since it was leaning too much to one side. It was in danger of falling over, since it leaned farther and farther to one side every year. They needed to straighten it out a little bit. They needed to make it more, straight, It was leaning to one side. They needed to straighten it out so it didn't fall over. You might be driving on a windy road. It curves left, it curves right, it curves back left again, but then maybe the road straightens out. After a while, if there are no more curves, and if it's just a straight road going forward, you would say that the road straightens out after all the curves are behind you. Have you ever hung a picture on the wall and discovered it's not quite centered? It's kind of tilting to one side, but you can never see that when you're up on the ladder hammering the nail in the wall, can you? You need to step back a few feet to see if it's straight. And if it's off center, you need to straighten it out a little bit. It's coming up on Christmas, so that's something you'll have to deal with your Christmas tree maybe. You'll put it up and stand back and you'll see, I need to straighten this out a little bit. That's a tough one to get. So that is the first way to use straighten out. When you have something that is tilted or curvy or bended and it becomes straight, or straighter anyway. Scientists straightened out the Leaning Tower of Pisa, at least a little bit. A road or a river can straighten out if it's not curving anymore, and you can straighten out a picture or a Christmas tree. The other way to use straighten out is to resolve a difficult problem or situation. I need to straighten out things with my roommate, you might say. You'd say that if you're having some problems with your roommate. Maybe you need to have a conversation about splitting household chores or paying the rent on time. I need to straighten things out with my roommate. I think many of us have had to do that at work, right? If you're having a disagreement with a colleague or a misunderstanding, you need to straighten things out with that person. You need to clear them up, resolve a difficult situation. You might know somebody that was, let's say, not on the right path in life. Maybe he or she was involved in drugs or crime or just didn't have the right priorities. But we all know people like that who straighten out, right? A lot of people find themselves on the wrong path, not doing the right things in life, but they do find a way to make better decisions. They find a way to straighten themselves out. You can say you need to straighten out your finances if you're not quite in control of your budget. So that's straighten out, a couple ways to use that very good English phrasal verb. That's all for today. Did you hear the episode we did about Lady Gaga and the movie A Star is Born? We had a little bit of technical difficulty with that one. If you pressed play and heard the wrong episode, just fast forward to about 20 minutes into that file and you'll hear the right episode. If you didn't hear it, it's a good one, and you can check it out at plainenglish.com/104. I wouldn't want you to miss it just because of a small technical problem we had. It was a good episode about that movie. I really liked it. plainenglish.com/104 if you have not yet heard it. JR and I will be back with you again on Thursday. Thanks for being with us as always.